I originally got into chiropractic. When I was 15, I hurt myself, and so a chiropractor helped me when no one else could. So I had a chiropractic experience. Couldn't sit down. Chiropractor adjusted me 3 times, and I was totally fine. And I was into sports, and I was headed toward the health field anyway, so it all worked real well for me. So that's all I've ever wanted to do. I've never wanted to do anything else. So I went straight through undergraduate chiropractic, went to chiropractic college, did okay, got out. Didn't know anything about business. Didn't know anything about business. My family's blue collar, military retired. Don't know anything about business. So I got involved with a practice that I thought the doctor actually was going to be able to teach me and help me and all that. It turns out that he really didn't know anything either. And he was just kind of hanging on. He was trying to retire, but he couldn't because he had spent too much money all his life. And so he kind of needed me to take off the load, but he didn't have the business really to bring me, and he didn't know how to train me. So that was a real bad situation. I put my diplomas up and all that, and I didn't know how to get patients. I didn't know how to talk to them. I didn't know how to keep them. I didn't know anything. So I was going broke. I'm living in a apartment on a floor in a sleeping bag. That's how my chiropractic career started. And that didn't last very long till I finally had to make some money. So after a couple months, I'm like, I got to make some money somewhere, because I don't have a background of coming from money. So I actually got lucky. A friend of mine who had been in practice for several years, he actually injured his wrist, and he needed carpal tunnel surgery on both wrists, which is a ligament injury. So he knew this was going to be like a year to do them both and to have them heal right and all that. And so I came in to run his practice, to trail his patients, run his practice while he had surgery. Well, the good news is he actually knew business. And now he couldn't just do like most associate positions where they'll just kind of keep you off and have you treat patients and never teach you the business part. That's how most he couldn't do that because I was his livelihood. So he had to teach me the principles of the basics of marketing, patient education, retention. So now he wasn't great, but he was definitely more business minded, and he knew the basics. So I ran his practice for about a year while he healed. I still didn't have the money to open, so I was saving money. But now what happened is I was trained, and I had no idea the power of what was about to happen because I was trained. So then I took over a satellite office for a doctor, and it was the same thing. He'd brought in a guy out of school that didn't know what he was doing, and he was at 39 visits a week when I took over. In other words, it was going under. So I took over, but now it was a whole different story. I was trained. So in 3 months, I took it from 39 visits over 100 visits. And in 6 months, I took it over 200 visits a week. And in 6 to 8 months, I needed an associate doctor for the practice that I was running for somebody else. That was the power of training. Knowing the difference between business and not knowing business, market forces and not knowing market forces. He wouldn't sell me the practice because I was making him too much money. I was an associate in a satellite office that I had an associate, if you can imagine that. So he wouldn't sell it to me. So I squirreled away equipment in my parents' basement, basic equipment, when I was going to get started. So I had an X-ray down there. I bought equipment. So I went ahead and decided to start because he wouldn't sell it to me. And I was in 800 square feet. I put everything together, 3 treatment rooms, everything. And in 6 weeks, I hit 100 patient visits a week, my 6th week in practice. The national average after 14 years in practice is 107. And in 6 months, 8 months, something like that, I'm seeing over 200 visits a week. My first year, I profited $232,000. That was the difference in knowledge and skill. When I didn't have it, I was broke, living on the floor of an apartment out of a sleeping bag, to now having the knowledge and skill, making $250,000 a year. My first year in business. So I did that for a couple of years, and then I just kept going. And then I just wanted to get a little bit more, to me it was a little boring, so I added personal injury. Personal injury to me was like a challenge, a little more challenging. So I started learning personal injury, doing personal injury, and I got really good at it. So then I took on my first associate doctor. And my idea was going to have two to create wealth for me. I thought, well, I'll have my practice, because I knew you couldn't get wealthy in being a chiropractor alone. I knew that. You could make a good income, but you couldn't get wealthy. So you had to know how to leverage time or money. So my idea was to have my practice, a satellite office, and then I was going to invest in like franchises, like McDonald's, things like that. Well, the more I talked to them and I looked at the numbers, everybody I talked to said, well, why don't you just do what you do? When they found out how much it cost to open an office and how much profit there was compared to a McDonald's. At that time, it was $750,000 investment, 18% profit margin. So compared to what, I could open a practice for $20,000 and make $150,000, $200,000 profit. So that's what started me going to the associate doctors and opening offices. So I brought on my first associate doctor, trained him. Well, I opened my first office, but I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to train somebody. So it was in the red. It kept going down. Doctor there it was like me out of school. He didn't know what he was doing. He was losing patients left and right, left and right. And I kept going over there 3 times a week because it's losing money, and you get tired of writing checks. And then finally I said, this isn't working. And because then my practice started suffering. I go, we got to stop the ship here, because now both of them are going down. So I decided to go ahead and change my business model to where I would owner finance that office, train the guy in my office before he went in there so he actually knew what he was doing. Kind of like me. I was trained before I went out. And it made a whole difference in the world. And so I put the guy in there. In 30 days, it goes from red to black. I'm getting a check instead of giving a check. I just found the solution. So then I brought on my first associate doctor, my second associate doctor. And then I would open, it got to be within 7 years, I had 2 full-time associate doctors seeing 350 patient visits a week. And I was opening 7 offices every 6 months. So I was in 1,700 square feet. 1,700. That's why when I come in here and I see 3,500 square feet, this isn't good to me. I look at this and I go, oh my God, this is bad. So I had 1,700 square feet. 2 full-time associate doctors, 4 full-time employees, 7 doctors in the back training. So I had 9 doctors in my office in 1,700 square feet seeing 350 patient visits a week. That's high efficiency. In other words, everybody knows what they need to do at a high level. Okay? So we put those systems together. And so we became very active. I became very active in chiropractic, part of the legislation, major donor to the chiropractic. Donated over $500,000 to chiropractic. I won the President's Award from Logan College. Authored 10 books now. So it's a speaker in 3 chiropractic colleges on the S-curve of economics. That's how people buy products and services. It's not what chiropractic teaches. Matter of fact, that's what changed. One of the things that changed my whole perspective in opening offices is if I'd have never learned the S-curve of economics, I never would have been able to open a second or third office. Because that's how people buy and consume products. And you'll see as we go through the next few days, chiropractic teaches and violates major concepts of how people buy and sell products. And that's why it's been stuck at 8% utilization over 120 years with 67% negative name recognition. And that's why. Well, I didn't do that anymore. I went to Fortune 500 companies, seminars on how and why people really buy versus what chiropractors push. Boom. I went there and he's talking, I'm the only chiropractor. There's people from IBM and there's people from, all these Fortune 500 companies, and they're asking what everybody does. And I'm a chiropractor. He goes, what are you doing here? Well, they were teaching the basics of human nature. That's what marketing and sales is. It's human nature. The S-curve of economics. Everything he said I could relate to as a consumer. I go, that's right, that's right, that's right. And I started looking back at what chiropractic was teaching at all the seminars I've been to. I'm like, nobody's buying subluxations. Nobody buys wellness care. So I opened 77 offices in 20 states. Did $60 million a year. How many people came in to get their subluxations checked? 0. But they'll still teach you to promote subluxations when you go to any of these chiropractic seminars. How many people come in for wellness care? Out of 77 offices in 20 states, how many patients came in for wellness care that didn't have symptoms or pain?
20%.
0. I only remember one patient who came in who had no pain, no physical pain, he had psychological pain. He saw he had scoliosis and he was worried about it. It was still a pain-based motivation. It wasn't pleasure. They don't come in for pleasure. They come in because they have a pain. And anyway, when you see this. So when I saw, I'm like, nobody's buying subluxations. They don't buy wellness care. They don't want to stay and pay. And I'm like, man, everything chiropractic's doing is violating the basic concepts of the S-curve of economics, how people buy products and services. Well, I didn't do that. I did what Fortune 500 did, and I did $60 million a year. In 7 years, I had 35 offices. In 9 years, I had 77 offices.